we don't necessarily have to be against anyone when it comes to choosing middle class, poor, and people that are wealthy, right? There are policies that could positively impact all layers, every layer. And so sometimes we get into these fights about wealth and punishing people that are wealthy when we should be having conversations about how do we help the poor and the middle class move and progress, right? How do we make their lives better without actually impacting the lives of others? Because people that are wealthy they control the press, they control the messaging, they control the narrative. So you're fighting against all of that. Focus on what you're going to do to help all of our boats rise. How do you help people in general? Stop focusing on whatever the national talking points were before. Well, hell, it hadn't worked. So why are we still using the same playbook that we've not won a championship, hell, not even gotten in the playoff on? So we keep trying to placate to everyone. That's not a winning strategy.
Alrighty, welcome in. Another fantastic week. Your favorite political podcast. This is Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Doing great, man. How about you?
Another day. It's warming up. I saw the other day that there was a little 7 out in front of the temperature number, and not just a singular 7 as it was last week. And there was a 7 with a number behind it. Man, if we can start that curve of that 7 around and get it up to a 9, we'll be happy. We'll have something, get back outside, do a little running around some. It's always nice. Hey, before we get into just whatever the hell the Trump people are doing this week, we need to tell you about the fine people who sponsor this program, and that is the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment and the Porch Creek Indians, and we really appreciate them and what they have done here, which is say, hey, we enjoy what you're doing. And matter of fact, talked to them the other day and about this, and they were saying, podcast is great. We really like everything, and and the mentions on there exactly what we want. And,
beautiful.
I mean, it's you can't beat that. Really.
No,
People who have listened all along, I guarantee you, they'll say zero change. Zero change from what we were. The only difference is the fact that we now say, hey, we really appreciate the Porch Creeks for doing this for us, and y'all should go and check them out. And because they're great. They have a great product. They do really, really well with the hospitality. That's the reason why they're the state's #1 employer in the hospitality industry. And they have 3 great locations in this state, in Atmore, Wetumpka, and Montgomery. Go and check them out. Yeah, you like David's been just went to the Wetumpka one.
Man. I'm going back. In fact, I might go back. I'm not sure. I got to coordinate with the people in my life, but I may end up taking them down there if everything falls just right. When they've got some live entertainment, because they also bring in major music acts. And I know they've got I think in the month of March, I think they've got Monica, the 90s R&B superstar, is supposed to be there, and I think they got a country act coming in
I saw
April
Chris
or May
Tucker
or
there.
something. You saw Chris Tucker there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's funny. He's funny.
He is funny, man. One of my all-time favorite movies was Friday.
Yeah.
I loved it. Quoted it. Oh, my neck, and my back. You been eating corn, Smokey?
That first Friday was definitely hilarious.
You can't beat it.
Hilarious.
And honestly, for most of it, after I watched it, I had no idea that Ice Cube wrote that. And a matter of fact, I'm not really sure that I knew that he just sat down, pen and paper, and started writing the thing by himself, basically, until I watched the movie Straight Outta Compton. And
okay.
So
another great movie.
I thought it was just kind of a collaboration sort of. I was like, come on, Ice Cube's not writing a movie by himself. But no, I mean, dude, it was so funny, and it was so genuine, and it was such a great. Every time I come in the kitchen, you're in the kitchen. Always in the goddamn refrigerator. You better pour some water on this shit.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, Ice
Uh,
Cube. Ice Cube is, and I know we've digressed a little bit, so I'm just going
That's
to
all
say
right.
this one
It's
thing.
our podcast. We can do whatever we want to.
I am literally like only one person removed from Ice Cube.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I happen to know. I don't know this cat very well, but I do know one of his first cousins. One of his first cousins is a professor at a university in California, and we have some church connections.
Yeah.
And so I've talked to this first cousin, and actually some other of Ice Cube's first cousins. And so I'm just one person removed from what is his name? His real name, O'Shea Jackson.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, just one person removed from O'Shea Ice Cube Jackson.
Yeah, that man. It was great. I love Ice Cube. I like the music. I like the the movie. There was, I'll tell you the other thing that was really funny. That it's because it's so random. They did a little deal back when Conan O'Brien still had a late night talk show, and it was Conan. And I want to say it was just a random Uber girl. If not, it was just like Conan's new assistant. And they were in the front seat of this car going somewhere in L.A. And in the back was Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. And I mean, man, if you watch the full unedited, uncensored of that, it is so. I mean, I had to stop it. I was laughing so hard, man, about some of the stuff that they were doing. But I mean, it was just hilarious. But anyways, listen. So you too could go see Chris Tucker and have all these fantastic memories from your teenage years of watching Friday with the fine. That's what the people at Wind Creek do. They bring to you these acts, and they bring up old great memories and make you forget for a little while that you're living in a crazy time. And listen, so go and do that. Just go to the resorts, hang out, seclude yourself. And make sure that you have a nice weekend every now and then, and get away from all of this stuff, okay? Because I understand it's a lot for a lot of people, and it's meant to be that way. So look them up online, Wind Creek Entertainment, book you a stay. Yeah, man, it's a lot. It's a lot. I believe I had this one when I said the worst of the Trump administration is that it just doesn't stop. It's every single day with things. Just like yesterday, the random freezing of everything, no clear guidance, no memo, no warning, no, hey guys, listen, all of these things that we do to support, the guy from ABC or CBS or wherever the hell he was from, the reporter, trying to nail down the press secretary on, hey, look, are these programs affected? Which programs are not affected? Or the heating program that pays for the heat for poor folks that are going to freeze to death if we cut this off, is that affected? Can they still pay their bills? What's the fact? And she didn't know. She clearly did not know. I mean, she got all pissy with him and acting as though he was asking unreasonable questions or something. But she didn't know.
I have a certain level of sympathy for her because, one, she's super young and I'd have to say consequently very likely very super inexperienced. Assuming she has any qualifications for the job. I don't even really know what her qualifications are, but whatever they are, she's only 27, I think. So she can't be that qualified. Number two, we know that these press secretaries, no matter how much experience or competence they serve at the pleasure of the president and the administration, and they really only know what they're told or prepped, or based on how they're prepped. That's how they know what they know. They're not making policy. So I feel a certain level of sympathy for her. Now she's getting snippy. That's unprofessional. That's clearly unprofessional. But I have a certain level of sympathy for her. I put 99.9% of the blame on an incompetent president and an incompetent White House administration for basically toying with people's lives without understanding process
Oh, they
what
understand it. They
I wonder if they do. I
well,
really
you know
wonder,
what?
Josh, if they understand process.
I shouldn't say that they understand it. I guess what I should say is they don't care about the process. It's
well,
not as though
I think that's true.
yeah, it's not as though that they didn't understand it, and it was just they did this good faith thing, and it was just, oh my God, what we made it. That they didn't give a
Right.
shit. They knew it was going to be chaos, and they didn't care. They did not care that it was going to be chaos.
Yeah, I think they didn't think through the political implications of the chaos because, like you, I really don't think they have a whole lot of sympathy or empathy for the people. I think what they're concerned about is, we can't have it out there that we're letting all these people die or suffer. We can't have it out there that now, people even in South Africa are going to be able to get the HIV medicine they need or some other medicine we need, and then thousands of them are dying or suffering, and it falls back on us. So that's why they've had to take a step back.
Well, have they actually taken a step back?
Well, they have rescinded in some of the. Well, okay, good point. So first of all, we know a judge has forced them to take a stop on some of this stuff. And then on some things, I think they have, if my understanding is correct, on some things they actually have tried to take a step back in terms of how they're executing policy and what they're going to do. Certainly, they've taken a step back in terms of tone because they've had to, But in some areas, they're not. Like, for example, as we talked about before we started rolling today, ICE agents are in full effect. And ICE agents were even reported at the campus of Alabama A&M University yesterday. I had a couple of sources that told me that. Now, what they were doing, I don't know. I don't know if they were arresting people or if they were just doing investigatory work. But from two sources, it was confirmed for me that they were there.
No, they weren't there to eat.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm assuming they weren't there to take a study course.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, it's really. I mean, this is what he does. This is what the people that he has surrounded himself will do. And we tried to tell you that this was what was going to happen. I mean, but just cut off, all sorts of, cut off the funding for farmers. I mean, there's a lot of farmers in that Trump base, that they're not going to be able to get their checks, not going to be able to get the funding that they need. There's going to be a pause on some of that stuff. And and the Medicaid portal was shut down, in every state for an extended period of time. And in some cases, I believe it's still shut down. We recorded this on Wednesday. The order went out on late Monday night. And so, and it was still shut down. So you're talking about, in a lot of cases, people not being able to get approved for treatments and care and things that they need. I mean, when you're talking about the care of millions and, tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people for that matter, I mean, man, that tends to affect some lives. And, and it, I'll tell you, I've told my wife this, and I've had this conversation with Bill Britt and some other folks around. It seems as though we have now fully entered the age of the asshole, or the era of the asshole, at least.
Are you gonna put that headline on a column? I'd love to see that.
I think I'm going to. I'm trying to figure.
All right.
I'm thinking I'm going to put the era of the a-hole. Because, and I'm gonna tell you where I first. This is gonna sound like such a simple thing, but I think it highlights it better than any other example that I could think of. I mean, because we know all the terrible things and all the political stuff, the immigration stuff, and all clearly terrible and clearly uncaring and all that. But that shortly after the inauguration, Trump was sitting at that little ceremony that he had inside the center in DC, where he was going to sign some executive orders in front of some of his base of people that were there to cheer him on, right? And so the guy, whoever this was, that had the stack of executive orders that he was to sign would announce what the executive order was. Then he would hand it to Trump, and Trump would make some, oh, that's a biggie. It's a biggie. Yeah, really want to do that one. That's right. Um, and so, could you imagine Biden doing this? I couldn't. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, no shit, I couldn't either. And so, but he handed him one and said, "This is the executive order that will force all federal employees to go back to the office." And people cheered. And it just was this cheer that went up through the crowd. And I thought, what the what are you doing? Why do you care? I mean, you have no concept of whether or not the people that you're sending back to the office are doing a good job or not. And as far as I know, nobody's really complained about any of the work that is being done, and they have processes in place to evaluate their performances and things. And as far as I know, there's been no real distinction between the performances of the people who were doing at-home work or off-site work, whatever, versus the people who had returned to the office. I don't really understand I don't know. It's so weird to me that people were like, yeah, send that, and I mean, that they're talking about some poor mom who does billing for the government office of whatever, who's doing it from her house, and she's able to take care of her kid who's there with her at the same time, do the job effectively and efficiently. Everybody's happy. Nobody, she's not driving to work, wasting gas on the highways and shit, and why are you cheering? Why are you cheering? Just because you're fucking with people? That's what it is here?
Well, I think it goes back to your original premise, which is this is an era in which people revel in sticking it to others. They revel in the suffering of others because of what they perceive to be political differences or social differences. And so they somehow derive gratification from that. Your statement reminded me of one of my fellow church members was telling some of us about how he's got a cousin with a disability who works at home for the federal government, but the office that she works for is in Arizona, and I think she lives in like Maryland or something. And so now she's trying to figure out whether or not she has to sell her house and find an apartment in Arizona in order to be in compliance. And this is a person with a disability. I mean, you've got, as you said, there are a range, as you're suggesting, there are a range of scenarios that this very cruel, petty government has not really taken into account. And I guarantee you, Josh, some of the people who were cheering, especially, and I'm not talking about government people that may have been there, but some of the people that are cheering around the country who are in the private sector may very well enjoy working from home themselves.
Yes.
And they understand you and I work from home.
Yeah.
We're great examples of that. You and I both work from home.
Yes, we do. Yeah, I have. I did long before the pandemic and all this.
Same here. You and I work from home. Our producer works from home up in New York, and we understand that it is possible in modern America to work at home efficiently, and productively.
Yes.
So what is this, as you're saying, what is all of this hoopla about forcing people to be in an office from 9 to 5 when technology could allow them not only to be at home, but to take care of family obligations at the same time?
It's a real estate deal, is what it is. It's money about real estate and and commercial properties and the value of those things. And they took a big hit after COVID, and it was a hit all at once. They had already been suffering for a little bit because there were so many different things that could have been done. I just.
So you're talking about governmental buildings? I mean,
I think that's where this whole if you work from home, you're a lazy, no good slug stuff kind of came in, is because they were trying to paint this this portrait of people in this way because they wanted to force these folks back into the offices. And they've come up with every trumped up imaginable excuse to do so. And the fact of the matter is you can work from home. Now, listen, there are certain people who can't. Okay, there are certain people who it just doesn't work for, who they don't have the ability to do it. All right, because they're easily distracted. They need to get to a work environment, and that's where they thrive better and they do their best work. Okay, if those folks need to go back to the office, that's fine. And if you're the boss and you make that determination that they need to come back in because you believe they're a better employee in the office, okay, that's one thing. But this blanket approach of, well, the work gets done better in the office, it's not true. For years, I had this argument at the advertiser for years, where I felt like my productivity was, pretty high. I mean, really high. Matter of fact, we could chart it and we could see that it was really, really high. And a portion of that was, as a matter of fact, I had conversations with people at the time about, hey, you not need to slow down or, whatever. And I would be like, no, because of the way I handle this stuff, I don't, because I'm at home, and if I call somebody and I'm waiting on a call back, I can run out and cut my grass or, run to the store, do the shopping or whatever that I need to do while I'm waiting on the call back, instead of sitting in the office wasting an hour and a half of my time and your time. And and it's the same thing. I get the same stories done. I work the same amount of hours, or maybe even less hours, but the productivity is a lot higher. And so, that to me is where you should measure things. And if you're not, then you're a stupid person. You're a stupid boss. You're a stupid owner. You're a stupid CEO if you're not measuring it in that way. And I just, but more so than anything else, it's the people on the outside of that who are, cheering for people's lives. For what possible reason? Why is this a good thing for you? Why are you so happy about, we're going to send those federal workers back? It just makes no sense to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to what you said. There's this, we've entered an era where this is where people get a lot of gratification. Now, what is the sociological explanation for it? I don't know. What's the psychological explanation? I don't know. But I know it's real. I know it exists. And if I can put on my church hat for a minute, I know there are a lot of church people who will tell you that some of the Bible prophecies talk about human history entering an era where people's attitudes were going to become profoundly negative and hateful and spiteful and that sort of thing. But whether you believe in the Bible or not, whether you want to attribute it to a biblical prophecy or not, the bottom line is it's happening. We're here, and it's inexplicable to us because it doesn't make sense. It runs counter to everything we were taught as children about how to behave and how to, live by the golden rule and all that other stuff. It runs counter to all of that. So it's hard to understand why we're here, and yet we are.
Yeah. No, man, it is, it's maddening. And, let me tell you, there's another one that gets me too. And it's whenever people talk about, green energy of any kind, where it was solar, wind, whatever. And there's this hostile response from people. A perfect example. The other day, I read a story it was on WSFA's website in Montgomery about a solar farm purchasing some property in South Montgomery County with the intent of building a solar farm down there. They were going to put a solar farm in that was going to help power some of the plants that were coming into the Montgomery area. The comments under this Facebook post from people about wasting the land and about, it's going to fail. I don't understand why they do that. Do you know how much those solar panels cost and what it costs to make those damn things anyways, and how much waste there is and the energy that it takes to put into solar panels, and how they're just eating up the land, and land could be gone to farmers. And I mean, dude, it was, I was like, how could you possibly be this amped up about this issue? You know, if you want solar, great. I mean, I think it's a fairly good thing, you know, for if you don't want solar, okay, don't have solar. I mean, but there are a few things about this argument that are unquestioned from either side. One of which is we're going to run out of the fossil fuels at some point, you know, and anything we can do to slow down the usage of those fossil fuels is something I think we should probably explore. No matter whether you believe that this is what's heating up the earth and causing these crazy ass weather events like an entire major city burning to the ground in the course of 2 weeks, or you know the floods in North Carolina that obviously were controlled by Democrats, and or you know the droughts that come and the way. And let me tell you another. I told this to another person the other day. I said, if you ever doubt the climate change that's happening, no matter what you attribute the change to, do this for me. Go to a major golf course anywhere in this country and talk to the greenskeeper who has been doing it for longer than 25 years. Talk to any greenskeeper who's been doing it and tell me what changes they've had to make. And I'll guarantee you that in a lot of the courses that you'll find, the greenskeepers at those courses have had to plant entirely different grasses now because those grasses that they once planted are no longer good for the current day's climate.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And also farmers. Talk to farmers about about what they're having to do and when they're having to harvest crops now and when the rotation is and what it used to be back in the 70s and 60s and what it is today. Versus, you know, and what time when they're doing it, when they're doing cotton, when they're doing soybeans, when they're doing all these things. I guarantee you the answer from those people will be that there has been a major months different shift in some cases. And so, but my point, back to the original point, is how has it been turned to this? How has it been turned to where you're just so gleefully happy to stick it to somebody over solar panels or the fact that they've got to go back to the office or, you know, and now Trump has sent out this memo to all the federal employees saying, hey, I'll give you 8 months pay to just quit.
That is so that when I heard about that, I just thought this is really one of the most idiotic things that we've ever seen because there's something called institutional memory that longtime employees have, or employees, they don't even have to be super long time. If you've been working at a place for 5 or 6 years, by then you've accumulated some institutional memory, meaning you understand the unwritten rules and you understand a lot of the ways that you can navigate systems and processes that a person just coming in isn't going to understand. And that's commonplace for any place of business, for any place of work. So to try to just get rid of thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of people, I think there are a couple of million people or more that work for the federal government, to try to get rid of a good percentage of those people so that you can bring in people that you think are more loyal, going to be more subservient and follow your wishes as, you know, the great leader. Now, that's really dumb because what's going to happen is they're not going to know systems, they're not going to know processes, they're not going to know unwritten rules, and there will be problems that they will create that will, and things that they will do that will have unintended consequences that will make their jobs harder and then consequently make it hard on the rest of us in this country.
Yeah, those are the intended consequences. The intended consequences is to badmouth government and say it is run inefficiently, and then do things to make that a self-fulfilling prophecy. To underfund it, to cut staff, to employ incompetent people, and then to say, you know, government, what are you going to do, man? We need to return this over to the private sector. You know, and I just I don't know. It is.
Yeah, it's exhausting, isn't it? It's exhausting. It's frustrating,
and it's not going to end. It's every people. I don't know how people forget this. It was. I mean, maybe COVID made people forget I mean, it was such a major life-changing event that it overshadowed the previous 3 years of the Trump administration. And I just, I don't know, man.
Every freaking day, man. It was something every freaking day. I was sick of seeing his face, hearing his voice, hearing his name, and I'm sick of it now because it would be different if he was doing something, even if he was doing something, that was just conservative that I wouldn't normally approve of. It would be pleasant to just even see or hear him do something like that didn't seem to be rooted in such antagonism and nastiness. He's just, there's a spirit of evilness that just permeates him and that administration and what they do. And it's not about politics. It's not about being a Republican or being a conservative. It's something different. It's very strange. It's something different.
It's greed is what it is. I mean, I'm thoroughly convinced that the end goal here for a lot of these people is to get their grubby little hands on this money. It's the same. You can boil it down to one simple example, and it's the school voucher deal. That's what this all is. It's a grab at this money out there and they want to give their friends in business these contracts. They want to give them the opportunity to do these things. They want to give them the public dollars to fund the private institutions. And that's all that it is. That's you're not going to get a tax cut out of this. You're not getting a tax cut. We're not going to save any money. We're not. He's going to wreck the economy, worse than he did the time before. And it's going to be an absolute shit show all the way down. And you are the people who are going to suffer, not Democrats. Working people are the ones who are going to suffer out of this. All right, you're not going to get the breaks. You might get a little crumb here or there off of something, which is exactly what you got last time out of his big tax cut deal. You got some crumbs, and why Democrats have not pushed this point, I don't know. Right now, we're talking about renewing the Trump tax cuts. You know why we got to renew the Trump tax cuts? Because the only part of the Trump tax cuts that sunset were the portions that went to the working folks. All right,
that's right.
The corporate tax breaks are permanent. They're not coming off the board. They're not changing. Matter of fact, he wants to cut them more now. But they're not coming off the break. The cuts for the rich folks out there, they're not coming off the board. They're permanent and they're locked in and they're not changing. It's for everybody else. Yeah. That's why you're having this fight now over this thing, and it's whether or not you get to keep your money. It's kind of like in the Alabama legislature, which we're going to talk with Anthony Daniels about his overtime tax cut. Isn't it weird that when we're talking about this education trust fund and the shortfalls that we might have in the education budget, how they keep talking about, oh my God, look how much money we're losing from this overtime tax exemption over here, and somehow they never bring up that $100 million a year currently and $500 million plus in the future that they're losing to this stupid voucher program, the Choose Act, that's taking public dollars and sending them to private institutions.
Hypocrisy, man.
Yep. And as I've preached to many people, and till I'm blue in the face over here, this is up to you. These are your people. This is what keeps you up at night. I'd worry less about which bathroom people are going into and a little more about this shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Preach, Josh. Preach.
I'm trying. I don't know if it's preaching, no, because I have a lot of cuss words. So yeah.
It's your kind of preaching.
Yeah, that's right. It is. Just clean up the cuss words and do with it what you would like. All right, I'll tell you what, let's slide out. We'll come back in just a minute, get Anthony Daniels in here and kind of preview the upcoming legislative session. You'll find out how you're really about to get screwed. And, maybe what the Democrats are trying to do to save you from some of that. All right, it's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. We'll be back in a minute. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week, Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy, as always, to have with us the minority leader of the House in the state of Alabama, is Anthony Daniels. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man, given the circumstances.
Yeah, well, I think that's the answer for all of us.
Mhm.
It's given the circumstances, that's how
Yep.
we're hanging in there. We're hanging in there. But y'all, you've got a legislative session coming up. Starts next week, and I don't know. I've heard some stuff about gambling here or there, but outside of that, is there a major topic, a major point of contention, anything that's going to be monumental that comes out of this? Go, you would think in this particular year, the year before we get to the year of election time, that there would be some stuff that folks would want to accomplish, and because they feel like this is their last chance to get things in.
Well, Josh, I'm not. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, but you have to know from a historical standpoint, national politics seems to influence state politics and what's introduced and what's passed. And so, well, one of the things that we have to be very careful about, where you see all the raids that are happening around the country with ICE, and then you see legislators and legislature want to focus on immigration policy. I think in Tennessee, they working on something in Tennessee and other surrounding states and states that have the trifecta across the country. And so, but I think here in Alabama, we realize that there are more at stake. Right now, when you look at the hospitality industry, agriculture industry, construction, and to just to name a few, we have a pretty we've increased our workforce participation rate slightly, but these are the type of things the federal fear and the things that are happening on the federal level will have an impact on employment and the jobs that we already have had a hard time getting people to work in. We cannot afford to lose the workers in those particular jobs. That's going to impact growth of the state. That's going to impact productivity long term. It's going to impact the workforce participation rate. It's going to impact the number of people that's working in certain various industries. We're operating as if AI can do some of these jobs. Well, some of the jobs I named, AI, yeah, they may have AI on the over the intercom when you're driving, going through a drive-through at Checkers. They may have AI now there, but you still need a person. AI is supposed to be more of a support mechanism at this particular point,
Yeah.
but AI is not here in full throttle to the point to where you can afford to lose workers.
Yeah.
Losing workers, it reduces your overall corporate tax receipts, meaning productivity begins to dwindle. That impacts your budgets. Individual income tax collections, tax receipts start to dwindle, reduce. We've had a 1.9%, 92% increase this past year. We've had in individual tax receipts. We've had 13.65% in the corporate tax receipts. So we've seen just from those tax receipts themselves, we've seen over about $300 million increase in returns just for those two areas. And so I think what we have to understand is the impact. And I think some of the folks in the state understand the impact that'll have on our economy. And I think there are certain issues at the national level that I would encourage us not to allow it to fester within the state politics and pushing something that's going to cost us.
Yeah. Well, I would assume that Alabama is one of the states that relies the most on migrant and immigrant labor out there. I mean, just from the farming industry alone, and the agriculture, and then not to mention all the construction. I mean, I don't know. We have in the neighborhood where I live, they're still building houses into the section that has been built onto the back of this thing, and I'll go run through there sometimes. And I mean, it's essentially a Hispanic street party that I hear. The music that's playing or whatever, and and the conversations that I hear back and forth. It's clear that there are a number migrant workers back there, taking up those jobs. And hell, I know from the fact of us doing what we've done in the real estate industry around here, and flipping houses and stuff. The people that you call to do the jobs most often are immigrants. You know, they've come in. Some are very obviously legal and have obtained legal status, and I would assume some were not, or as part of their crew that you see out there. I just it is a I mean, if we start this chilling, and we've seen it already, we know what happens when they leave. We watched the crops rot in the fields here a few years ago with HB 56. So we know what happens with this, and so it seems so counterproductive. Is it? I mean, is it just for political points? Why would we ever risk this again?
Well, what it's going to do is going to have an impact on our growth and attracting industry, because if you have more people that's more jobs than you have people that are on unemployment in a state like Alabama, imagine what it's going to look like if we start, deporting immigrants, and even a lot of times you end up mistakenly deporting someone that's perfectly have done everything that we've asked them to do to become legal. And those individuals are impacted, and then you're breaking up, and you end up breaking up families. So then people have to make decisions about what they do next. And so I think that for us, we got to understand the impact that this is going to have. Even the conversation or the introduction of a bill that makes news headlines drives fear enough to where individuals start to look at an exit strategy on how, we don't, if we're not wanted in this state or this country, let's go somewhere that we are. And so for me, I think that that is counterproductive. And if understand that it's going to have impact on growth and jobs in the future, because how are we going to land company and employment opportunities in rural areas when many of the populations of people that we're talking about reside in those particular areas as well? So I think we're not looking at the big picture. We're operating on emotion, and we're continuing to spew the rhetoric of a campaign that did not overwhelmingly win the presidency. And so, but here's the thing I will say to people that are out there that,
Wait. I thought there was a mandate. I thought there was.
and for the people that did not engage in the process, I'll say to them that they were a part of the problem.
Yep.
He's sitting home and not doing anything makes you complicit to what we have right now. That's just not, it's not right. I think that for me, I agree with some of the tax cuts, like the tips and the overtime stuff. I agree with that from the administrative standpoint. But all this mass deportation, all these things that we're doing, we're not thinking about the outcomes. We're not thinking about how this is going to adversely affect the state. The federal freezing on federal contracts and all that. What do you think that's going to do to a state that has most of its in our community? Our dependency on the federal government is we are more dependent than many other places across the state of Alabama, right? And so how does that impact, our military, our contractors? How does that impact the DOD? How does that impact the FBI? How does that impact the various agencies that have a presence and contractors that has a presence in Alabama, and all the military installations that we have here, all the veterans that we have that reside in this state, or that we've sent from our state to fight for our freedoms. So you're not thinking through this, and so there's no way to fix it. Once it happened, there's no way to fix it. What are you gonna do? Raise taxes? You're not. Well, you raise taxes if you want to, then you're on your own.
Well, Anthony, I love what I'm hearing you say. I love the way you're analyzing this and responding to it.
It sounds a lot like a big town mayor, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Or maybe Alabama's largest
or
city,
congressman, or some other high-ranking official. I appreciate your perspective on it, but I will say, there seems to be in the political sphere, there seems to be a deafening silence. You're staking out a really, I think, strong position here analytically, but I'm not hearing from, the Alabama Democratic Party. On the whole, I'm not hearing from other Alabama elected officials. Now, I do know that, Congressman Figures and Congresswoman Sewell spoke out related to the Tuskegee Airmen situation, as did Senator Britt. But by and large, we're not hearing the kind of analysis and pushback from the Democratic Party in the state that we should be. Why is that, and what is it going to take for them to speak up?
I would say this, David, in full disclosure, I think they're still mourning the loss. It's almost like when we lost the election in November, we started mourning as if it was a family member, which really was, right? And sometimes it takes you a long time to get over it. And from a party standpoint, it doesn't appear that there's no real plan. See, we were so confident that we were going to win the election to where we never put together a plan as if a concession speech, right? We've never put together a concession speech and a concession plan, right?
Uh-huh.
We were so confident, and we can taste vigor, and we thought with our emotions, right? And we just started to really think about what we were going to do once we were in control. We didn't think about not winning the House. We didn't think about not winning the presidency. And so sometimes taking a loss has a much bigger impact than we could only ever imagine, right? And so, but at the end of the day, you got to get up, saddle up, and get back to it. But this is why it's important that you have think tanks and folks that are focusing on plans and strategies and how we lift America. How do we lift all boats up, right? And how do we lift America and Americans in general? And then as a party standpoint, we don't necessarily have to be against anyone when it comes to choosing middle class, poor, and people that are wealthy, right? There are policies that can positively impact all layers, every layer. And so sometimes we get into these fights about wealth and punishing people that are wealthy, when we should be having conversations about how do we help the poor and the middle class move and progress, right? How do we make their lives better without actually impacting the lives of others? Because people that are wealthy they control the press, they control the messaging, they control the narrative. So you're fighting against all of that. Focus on what you're going to do to help all of our boats rise. How do you help people in general? Stop focusing on whatever the national talking points were before. Well, hell, it hadn't worked. So why are we still using the same playbook that we've not won a championship, hell, not even gotten in the playoff on? So we keep trying to placate to everyone. That's not a winning strategy.
All right. I think that's fair analysis. I heard on a podcast, Rachel Maddow's podcast, I think it was, that the group Indivisible, which we emerged 10 plus years ago or something like that, as a grassroots progressive group, the group Indivisible is advocating strongly for the U.S. Senate, Democrats in the Senate, to be disruptive, to just disrupt everything, to basically do, I would say, it sounded like to me, to basically do what Mitch McConnell and the Republicans did during Obama's 8 years, to do the same thing now to Trump. What do you think of that as a political strategy? And if you like the idea of it being done at the national level, is that something you would ever consider in the legislature?
Well, here's what I will say: indivisible has been indivisible. They've not been visible.
Okay.
And so for them to come out, how many years? How long ago have we've not heard from them since Trump's first election?
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
So how do you sit on the sidelines for this long and now come up with a plan? What's their plan? Right? What's their plan? Everyone is looking for someone else to do something. I think for me as a political leader, I was just really concerned that we've not heard any type of strategy or any pushback at the national level at all. There's no plan to be able to say, hey, here's what you guys should be doing at the local level. Here's what you should be doing at the state level, right? Here's what you should be doing at the county level, right? There's no conversations about that. Everyone right now is just trying to figure out what to do. There is no leader at the national level to help us understand the strategy on how to get out. That's why think tanks are important. The other side they've mastered having think tanks and policy groups and disruptors within their own ranks. That their job, everyone wants to be in the starting five. And then everyone wants the big contract, right? No one wants to follow, it appears to me. But right now, there's no leader, and we don't have to have necessarily a leader. We can start building within our own communities. And that's what's been happening is that, and the other thing is, we focus on emotion instead of data. None of the emotional issues that we're discussing has any data behind it to say that we should be talking about these things. Let's get more data driven. Now you got to say to John or Jane or Joe, hey, I know that's important to you, but we're focusing on these issues in these particular areas that's going to get us back to where we need to with the group of people that we've conceded and lost to this current president. We are working on getting those people back. It's no fun when you have a small group of people. We know what this group is going to do, but it's not enough in the army to win the war. So you got to add more to the army. You got to add more intel. And having intel helps you defeat the enemy, even if you're outnumbered at the time. But we've not done anything. And then when we govern, we're so afraid to pass and push things that's going to help the people that we're trying to represent. I hadn't heard one Democrat nationally say anything about cutting the income tax on overtime pay. Not one. But guess who it helps? It helps the working class people that we are looking to get. We're not convincing them.
You know, man, I hate to jump in here, but so a while back, several years ago, possibly somebody on this particular call here, wanted me to participate in a strategy session call among Democrats. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll get on and give some advice and tell people what I think. And so there's very smart people on there. I don't discount anybody or anything, but as they started talking about different ideas to attract more people, and I think this was shortly after Trump's first election, and I said, look, I heard a lot of great ideas. I said, honestly, what I think is the winning approach here is to maybe focus less on some of the identity stuff and focus more on working class people. Let's focus on the working class folks. Let's say that's what we're going to do, policies for working class people, because that's going to attract everybody across the spectrum. You're not going to get into all this other stuff. And you're going, hey, we're not worried about that. We're worried about what keeps people up at night, what they sit down at their kitchen table and they talk about, how they're going to pay these bills, how they're going to get their kids into this college, how are we going to do these things? Well, oh my God, the mortgage. We're going to focus on those things and we're going to do that. And so there was this long pause. And somebody said to me, I swear to God, this is true. Well, there's a lot of people who don't work out there, and I feel like we're excluding them.
Listen. I have a lot of opinions.
I said, I gotta go. I'll talk to y'all next week. Yeah, see.
Listen, what's happened, Josh, we've allowed mega donors to dictate policy instead of voters. We've led with our policy positions being more about what the donors want versus what people need or want. And so that's why there are more donors voters than the people, the average person out there. Like when you walk into a community, you got to be able to communicate with them effectively. And there are certain issues that negatively impact certain communities. I'm not saying that those issues shouldn't be a part of the way you think when you're
certainly
fighting.
Yes.
But it shouldn't be the issues you lead with.
Right.
Because I write a
Exactly.
sizable check, doesn't give me the ability to tell you, you need to talk about this issue versus that issue. And the other thing, we have groups within our own ranks that only give the candidates that focus on a single issue, but expect the other people that they didn't help and support to fight and defend their issues. So you don't have, you got to have a well-rounded strategy, and you got to support people so they can support the overall cause. But if you're going to take your ball and go home because you didn't get your way on your one single issue, then go home. Then go home. We keep playing the game, like I said before. We keep falling in love instead of falling in line. And we can't fall in line unless we have leaders to give us a roadmap. It can't be a one-size-fits-all approach. We won an election without the National Party investing a whole lot over the last, since 2010. The National Party hadn't invested a whole lot in the state of Alabama until Senator Jones was elected, right? Because they didn't feel it was possible. Imagine if you had infrastructure and you had competitive races at the local level across the state of Alabama. We keep focusing on places that have the Democratic trifecta or close. But if you move all your money out of places like Alabama and in other places like Alabama and don't build any infrastructure long term, then you give the other side an opportunity to invest into the areas, take all the money that they would have invested in those areas and play in these 14 little areas. And so for me, that makes no sense. And then we hate to tell people, oh no, we hate to tell them no. And we're not requiring things to be data driven. Meaning that if you took $2 million from me and you said you were going to do A, B, C, and D, where are the metrics? Let's see how close did you get. They got to make certain that the funding and the investments at the national level to groups, that the outcomes are either close. But they're not even checking. They just see a few posts on Facebook and say, oh God, they're doing this. They're doing great down there in Alabama or great in Louisiana or great somewhere else because of Facebook pictures. There's no metrics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Stop giving away the kitchen sink if you can't drink from the faucet. And I'll tell you that's one of the reasons why I like the agenda that y'all put out this week, the House Democrats, and because I think it struck a good chord when you're talking about expanding people's freedoms. The right over the last several years has done a lot of stuff to contract those freedoms, whether it be dictating what people can read or who they can marry or, what their doctors can tell them that they can do and all this. And so I think people are tired of that. And so I think a message that says, hey, we're going to expand your freedom, not just these freedoms here to go into a library and pick out whatever the hell books you want to read, but also, to say we're going to give you opportunities. Here are some opportunities to do different things. And I think the combination of that expansion of the freedom versus the pro-business and growth stuff that's in there and pro-worker stuff that's in there is a winning combination. And just when you looked over the entire blueprint that y'all have, are you pretty satisfied with everything?
Well, I think so. I think that there are a few issues that we got to address. I think that when you have to be your own think tank and you have to dig deep into trying to figure out kind of the impact of various pieces of legislation as legislators and not staffers. We have staff support, but not at the level to where we can track everything that comes on the pike and interpret everything that comes on the pike and put together a plan to push back. There should be a think tank that have done the analysis, have done the focus grouping that helps you determine how to best fight certain particular issues. But you're basically are fending for yourself. It's like everyone is playing individual ball instead of team ball. And so now is the time, I will tell you, now is the time to be even hard on the people that we have in our own party. Now's the time to have a meeting. You can be public or private. I'm at the point to where I don't care because I've had enough. All right, I've had enough. And you know, when I don't get when our members don't get help from the outside on legislation that's going on, everybody wants to claim credit for this, that, and the other. And guess what? You're speaking to a choir. You're not speaking out of a megaphone, you're speaking out of a microphone. There's a limited amount of people that can hear you. Yeah, it may let you pat yourself on the back, but what is it actually really doing? And so I'm just sick and tired, and I'm sick and tired of some of our groups that claim to be progressive, that's having more conversations with the other side about issues and not had a conversation with Democrats or people that are with you. I'm tired of them too.
You should educate them.
Yeah, and so
Not naming anybody in particular, but just
well, these are groups that's taking money from the national level to focus on various issues and advocating on various issues, but I very rarely see them even talking to Democrats in the House of Representatives and probably the Senate too. I'm tired of it. I'm done with it.
yeah.
I'm done with it.
Yeah, I'm going to put one out there right now. And the one that's bothered me the most is this deal with school choice and the lack of engagement from the Alabama Education Association on some of this stuff. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I appreciate what I have a lot of friends over at AEA. And I know some of the work that a lot of the folks on the ground level do all the time. But my God, man, you look around at Tennessee and Kentucky and Utah and New Mexico and Arizona, and you see the groundswell of support that has come from the public for these teachers. And the amount of work that has been done by these teachers in those states to fight against those voucher programs and those and the theft of this money from public schools going and taking it and putting it into private businesses that don't have to play by the same rules. You look at those things and you see what they've done, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that we don't have any sort of a similar movement in this state, and we don't have anything. There's nothing. There is no movement here, none whatsoever. And you can't tell me that Alabama is different than Kentucky and Tennessee. Okay, you can't do it.
Well, Josh, here's what I will say, because I used to be a leader in the organization some time ago, and the rules are a little bit different, and the payroll deduction, all these things were.
I understand.
You got to realize that these folks have to survive, and they have to try to put things together.
I understand. I understand it all.
Alabama don't necessarily have ballot initiatives where citizens can put things on the ballot like other states. Okay, and so there has to be 63 votes in order for that to happen, and there's no 63 votes to make any of those things happen in either house for them. And
Why
so
not?
you got to, and I'm not defending them. What I'm saying is, they are operating with their hands behind their back a lot of times, and they're really handicapped on their ability to maneuver at the way that they need to, because they're trying to survive for them and their members. They try to focus on improving working conditions and salaries and all those things. Well, they're hitting the mark on a lot of those things, right? But I would tell you, the numbers and the way they play ball now, they can't play ball like they played before. It's just a new day, and so I think. For them, it's about, how do I get things done for my members, knowing that I don't have the numbers to make it happen. And so I understand from the outside looking in, it does appear a certain way, but
Well, I would say
I recognize the barriers, though.
right. No, and I get that. I get all that. But I think what often happens is, in cases like this, is we come back and we say, well, they face all of these different things. And now all of what you said is true. All of what you said, they definitely face all of those things. And I know it well. But as the holes were being put in the boat on this thing, they stood and kept trying to do just the pails of water. And they knew that they were taking on water. Oh, and there was more than they were ever going to be able to dump out of this thing if they continued to do it this way. And everybody from the outside that's looked at this said, there's only so long you're going to be able to hold off X, Y, and Z. And sure enough, X, Y, and Z has come along, and now they're at the end of the rope on this thing, and they're jerking money out left and right. And I mean, we're gonna lose possibly $1 billion a year out of that education budget for this Choose Act. It's gonna be close to $1 billion a year, and it's almost all of it is gonna go to kids who've never spent a day in a public school.
Well, that's why, Josh, it's important for them to kind of look at things like dynamic scoring so they can actually start measuring some of the progress or the lack thereof and adding those type of things to legislation so that uh, the entire public will see. Because sometimes when a message is coming from a group that stands to benefit from it, it's not necessarily accepted, but the data it'll be able to speak for itself. And so I think that probably some of the strategy probably should be some of the dynamic scoring on some of the things that, like the Choose Act. I think that the Choose Act, from everywhere that we've seen it, it's been problematic. And it starts out being for kids that are disabled, and it starts out being for black kids or poor kids. And then the tap is taken off. That is the carrot to get folks interested and to kind of keep the arguments down. And so now, but the thing for me is measuring it, because there's no data in any state that shows that there are better progress because of the vouchers in education.
It shows the opposite.
Well,
It shows the opposite. They're worse.
yeah.
And that's correct.
Well,
And-
well. Let me just ask this though before we run out of time with you, Anthony, because I want to follow up on something Josh is saying. I agree with you about the need to enhance the argument with metrics. My issue is, and I'm piggybacking on Josh here. My issue is, I don't hear anything coming out of AEA at all about this. It's like they're just like they've gone to sleep at the wheel, and they've just let this. They've let the Republican Party and conservatives and these school choice people just jump in the car and drive, and they've just gone to sleep in the passenger seat.
And at the same time, they're being shit on anyway. Everybody treats them like they're a bunch of communists over there in the building trying to do it. I mean, you couldn't talk about them any worse than what they're already being talked about. So why wouldn't they just say something?
Listen, Josh, this organization made me, so I love this organization.
I understand, and I'm not saying to talk
And I'm
bad
not
about
unfairly-
anybody, because we're
I'm
all
not
on the same
unfairly-
side, I think.
But I think that sometimes, those of us that don't have a CDL, we don't know what it's like to drive an 18-wheeler, right? I think those of us that are looking from the outside looking in, see a car that we don't even know how to drive. And so I think that we got to be able to sit down and try to understand from an internal standpoint the barriers and the challenges that they have, and that things could be far worse. And so I think we got to look at some of those things. I think that the strategy for any organization like an AEA probably have to be legal. It has to be a legal strategy, because they don't necessarily have the numbers to do the things that they once done under Dr. Hubbard. And so I think that we got to give them some grace with the time, and they're trying to build enough relationships to be relevant, right?
And I think, and that's where my biggest problem lies, is that we've seen this coming. This was not a secret. The first of these Choose Act voucher programs happened 9-10 years ago. And so we knew that this slow march was coming this way. And over the course of that time, I've not seen any real effort put into building building out the membership, encouraging the membership, and increasing those people to increase the outrage, and to create a movement like we've had in other places. And I get what you're saying about driving the car, but I've seen other people drive the car, and they're doing. I mean, they're up in Kentucky, they're essentially Jeff Gordon and up there, or Dale Earnhardt, and we're Dick Trickle down here. I mean, it's
also like the Democratic governor in Kentucky. So there's no
But
trifecta.
at the same but you know why we got a Democratic governor in Kentucky? Why do we have a Democratic governor in Kentucky? Because the Republican governor in Kentucky, the previous one, tried to fuck over the school teachers, and they built that coalition up and said, no, get your ass out of here. We'll take this guy. We want him in because he's not going to cut our pay and our benefits like they did to those goobs down in Alabama.
But you got to also look at the other dynamics from an organizational standpoint. We don't have the national resources into our party at the level that we need it. and we've been using litigation as a way to bring some parity uh, um, from the congressional district to now the Senate district, and maybe end up seeing some county commissions and all that. And so I think that sometimes when you're playing in this arena, you're playing to survive and to help your organization survive. Now we know the impact that the payroll deduction, taking that away, had an impact on the organization, nearly tanked the organization. So they had to really rebuild from the ground up. And so there are also rules that they had to consent to, that prohibit them from doing as much as organizing as they could. Right? There's a separation there. So we got to also understand that you can't utilize internal resources to deal with politics like you used to. And so it's almost like there. And then the other thing is, if we don't necessarily have the investments from a party standpoint to be competitive, why the hell would anybody get in the car with us at the rate that we need? So getting beat up, right? You walking into a fight that you're going to lose, right? You got to bring some other people with you. Right now, they don't have other people to bring with them to help them fight everybody everyone that's in the bar. And so I think, I'm not making an excuse for them, but what I'm saying is I'm looking at the full picture of what they're up against. Because it's a good talking point for us to say, oh, AEA, they're fighting for us, they're doing this, that, and the other, they're vocal, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, if they're still taking L's, it did nothing for the organization, and they're really becoming irrelevant. And so I think that you gotta chip away, because this thing didn't happen overnight. They've been chipping away at AEA for years and years and years. So in order for AEA to get back to where they have more of a public education caucus, they got to build that. And you can look at the Choose Act votes to tell that they don't necessarily have that. And so if your numbers are super majority against, counter to what you believe in, then how do you expect them to stand up?
Well, I expect them to stand up, but because they're still taking the L's, and on top of that, what better organizing tool do you have than saying they're about to take all of our stuff, all of these jobs. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose the benefits. You've already lost some benefits. They already cut some benefits out. And on top of that, we're going to start losing resources for these schools. You know, the schools that are already underfunded, and you're having to beg the parents to bring toilet paper and paper towels up here all the time. You know, we're about to lose $1 billion a year out of that budget that paid for all of that stuff.
So what if the legislature, with the supermajority, decides that they want to put pressure on every school district that has AEA members?
They can already do it.
I know
They're
that
already doing it.
if they do that, it's going to bankrupt the organization.
I mean, to me,
You
they're already being bankrupted. And so the only way to fight it, you got to fight, man. At some point, if you just continue to take punches,
You can't build on the ground, man.
well, at some point, you got to pick yourself up and say, look, we just can't keep taking punches. We're going to have to do something here. And to me, that they've tried to play this backroom sort of deal, and I get it. They've staved off some of the worst, but you're right. Every year they chip off more, and they chip off more, and they chip off more, and now they've lost a big one, and it's going to be a big one. All right, if something doesn't change,
yeah, they got to challenge it in court. But there needs to be other. If we had the strength and the investments from 10 years ago, from a party standpoint, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because they'll have allies to fight with, and they have enough numbers, right?
Yeah. Well, so
They don't have it. Now, they do have some Republicans with them, but not enough to really move the needle. So you gotta be careful. Now, I've never seen them go after a Democrat in a district that's Democratically leaning. I've never seen them do that, right?
Yeah.
And I've always seen them be helpful to Republicans that align with them on their issues. But they're just not they're not at 63.
Well, let me just ask you this, because I know we kind of run over here. Is there Yeah, I know Josh
I
is
want him to do this.
Josh is fired up about this. I know he's fired up about it. Is there not? I mean, do you see any evidence? At least, I guess what I need, and it sounds like maybe what Josh needs too. We need our anxiety to be assuaged. Okay,
Give us
can you
something to
give us
believe
some
in.
kind of sense that maybe they are doing some kind of proactive coalescing somewhere? You know, give us some sense, Anthony, that when it comes to this issue and the AEA, that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
So the AEA that operated prior to 2010 was a different AEA, and they had payroll deduction. They had the resources to do and coordinate much politically. Well, when all of that stuff was dismantled, it kind of put them in a situation where they had to reassess how they operate, given the rules from the court and all these other things, right? The dynamics have changed. Now, I would say to you that AEA has some extremely hardworking staff members that are at that legislature every single day. Okay, every single day, and I think that their leadership, you know, from Amy to Theron, extremely strong, and they built some alliances that AEA didn't have even during Dr. Hubbard's days. Now, when you look at the results, AEA's focus is educators, education support personnel, teachers, right? You've seen an increase in teacher salaries over the course of the last, I would say, 8 years, more than you did the previous 10, right? So if we're measuring them, let's look at that, right? Has their defense improved? Well, right now you're operating with a smaller team under different rules. You know, they changed the rule when one team dominates so much, the rules begin to change, right? To make it fair, provide parity for everyone else. Well, that's what's happened. The rules were changed and they were basically stripped down to nothing. And so the game that they were playing, they were used to playing, is not the same arena. I mean, it's not the same game and the same rules that they're playing by today. So therefore, they had to make the adjustments. Do I think that they will ever be a force to be worked with? I think that they're moving back in that direction faster than you actually think. But I think they're moving in that direction in more of a bipartisan manner instead of a partisan manner. Right? And let me tell you, there's no one that looks at data more than me. Or when I see a person voting a certain way, and I'm like, oh, this organization is for this person, they're voting it, you know. But Mike Ball told me this. There's nothing better than taking money from a group and voting against them.
Yeah, that's happened a lot. But all I'm saying is,
I'm not taking that approach, but
yeah, I just saying, listen, I'm just, you know, I don't know, man. I hear what you're saying. I just think that there have been a ton of missed opportunities to increase the participation of teachers, and there have been a lot of organizational opportunities that have been missed. And I think that what has led to a lot of those those teacher pay increases, has been a groundswell of support from the public for those things, which tells me that there is there's support out there among the general public for public education and for public teachers. And I think that has been not cashed in on properly. And I understand all the rules have changed. I'm not comparing them to the pre 2010 or even the first few years after 2010. I know that all this has changed, but I to me, they reached a tipping point in, say, 2015, 2016, somewhere around in there, where they were taking L's every single issue on things and just trying to stave off these things and make the deals in the background with Republican legislators to make it not as bad, to make the beating not as bad. And I think they've now reached a point and reached it sometime back where look, you're not losing anything at this point. The people who are with you are the only ones you got left, and so you're not going to lose them. And if you did, hell, you're already in a super minority as it is. You might as well start punching from the ground up and see what you can accomplish if you start bringing some folks in, and try a media strategy or some other things out there that gets people like me, who's on here screaming about this stuff, that say, hey, we ought to send him some stuff about this, and maybe he would get it out, and it would help us organize,
Well,
but
Dre,
they don't.
there's a difference between acting and reacting to emotion in running a business.
I understand
There's
that.
no difference. And so I think that they're running a business and they're building the business. And at some point they will be in position to have a Fortune 500 business with major profits. But right now they're a small business. I mean, I'm just being honest with you, but they're
Okay.
mighty in what they're doing as in having a small operation. And then they have an agenda clearly laid out every session. They meet with every legislator with their local teams, and the things are on their agenda. I think that all of us can agree with. And so I think that you got to look at their priorities on paper, and you got to be able to look and see, did we check this particular box? And a lot of times the boxes are checked. I mean, now there are some things that they're against that may end up making it through, but a lot of the things that they want are beginning to happen too. So you gotta. I'm not defending anyone, but I just tell you what I see every day in Montgomery, and even in the district. I just met with a group of members last week here at the Howell Education Association, and they laid out their agenda, and we went through every point of the agenda, and I brought some reality to the conversation about, these things are going to be possible. This is not. This is where you're going to have a challenge, and being honest with them, right? And so, for me, that's something that that's important. And so let's playing a little bit more offense will be good for them on various things, so that both like yourself and others will know and be able to write about what they're actually doing, right? So that people can know. But I will tell you that they're doing a lot. It may not be, they're not running a news story about what they're doing, but maybe that's what Democrats have been guilty of. We don't talk about what we've done enough. Well, we just focus on, we keep playing defense, playing defense a lot, and never get a chance to play offense. So I think that there's some merit to playing a little bit more offense.
Yeah. Well, listen, if this is you not defending somebody, I'd hate to see you on a basketball court. You're like Dikembe Mutombo over here, just wagging a finger. I don't know what's going on. All right, listen, we've done this for like 50 minutes now, so we've got to get you out of here. It's always such a good conversation, and
Well, I guess I'll go eat
it
some
is.
T's Country Kitchen now that y'all done beat me up so badly.
Well, we're just preparing you to deal with your kids later.
Listen, I'm looking forward to it. Bring me. I'm going to be the agitator of the Trump agenda.
Beautiful.
I hear you.
Beautiful.
Nice. That's what we wanted
Love
to
it.
hear.
Absolutely.
That's what Anthony the Agitator. That's we're gonna get your T-shirts printed up.
There you go.
You can wear them around. All right, hey, we got to slide out. Thank you for coming on, spending the time.
Thank y'all.
We really do appreciate it.
Thank y'all for being so damn hard on me.
Where's it about you?
Y'all made to pour my ass.
Never. We got you. We got you, brother. We got you.
Anthony Daniels, he's our last best hope, I think, out there. So we really do appreciate him coming on and all the work he does. All right, let's slide out. We're gonna come back. We'll wrap this thing up quickly. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Hey, Brian, I want to thank our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment again for sponsoring. Also, the SPLC for sponsoring, and always
Yep.
doing well whenever we need a guest to talk about some important topics. We always reach out to them, and they're always available. And so, thanks to them. Also, thanks
Mhm.
to Anthony Daniels for
Yeah,
coming on, and we really appreciate him, the work he does, both in the
absolutely.
legislature and as the PR spokesperson for the AEA. And
That's funny, man. That's
I
funny.
know, yeah. It's
That's
no,
funny.
it's I don't I legitimately want the AEA to succeed. That's why I
Yeah,
have a problem. That's why
yeah.
I get upset about it is because I see what's happening in other states, and I understand what he says about ballot initiatives. But man, there's one surefire way to get people to move in government, and that's get a bunch of people fired up and going out to rallies and everything else. And it
Well, I
just
think
that
he,
doesn't.
I think he pretty much conceded that at the end.
Yeah, yeah,
In the final analysis, I think he made it clear that he understands that there could be more of a PR push, but he
hmm
also wanted us to understand that there's some inherent limitations that they have now that they haven't always had, and that's what's making it more challenging for them to move forward. But
yeah,
you know, I guess
yeah.
we'll just have to keep watching, and of course we're going to talk about it some more if we need to, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I heard you say there is that I won the argument, and so that's really all I needed to hear. I stopped listening after that.
Oh, is that what it's
Anyway,
really? That's really what it's about, huh?
that's all I really cared about. It's like Billy Bean. Once you get the answer you're looking for, hang up. No, it's it's just kind of frustrating, I just to watch this and to see what's going on and just the blatant money grab. It just irks me. It really does. And so, anyways, I know it sounded like I've got all these criticisms of the folks at AEA and that I'm just being harsh on them and all this. I'm not. I know they're good people. I know they work hard. I know they have good intentions and that they want to do the right things. I just want it to be more, and I want it to be better, and I want people to fight. I want some people to fight this stuff, and have an opportunity to get with some people that are fighting this and to help in some way. So, I'm always available. If you'd like to call, you call, message, do whatever. I'm here. So, but all right, we got because we spent so long with Anthony because it was a
Kind
good
of went
conversation.
long there, yeah, yeah.
We're gonna have to wrap up pretty quick, so we're just gonna go right to our right wing nut, and our right wing nut of the week here is the Trump uh, press secretary, and Carolyn Levitt, bless her heart. I know she's 27 years old, and but going into that job, you are gonna have to say and do things that are gonna make you seem incredibly stupid. It's just like
It's a
what was
tough job.
Spicer? What was his name? Spicer?
Sean, yeah, Sean
Yeah,
Spicer, yeah.
that rolled out and started screaming about the size of the inauguration crowd.
Mhm.
Period. And
Mhm.
you should know from that and from Scaramucci, and all the other nonsense.
Anthony
Yes,
Scaramucci,
and
yeah,
then the governor Huckabee's daughter.
yeah. Who's
That's
now incredibly is the governor of Arkansas. That still blows me
yeah,
away. Sarah
yeah.
Huckabee governor. That's
Yeah,
weird.
who's got one hell of a scandal about a podium. I don't know if you've seen that,
No, I hadn't
or
seen
read
that.
through it.
No.
Oh, you should look that up.
Okay.
Google the Sarah Huckabee Sanders, podium scandal and just read the background and all the stuff on it. You will be well, you may not be amazed that she did something that stupid, but it'll brighten your day. Um, you should know that with this job as the Trump press secretary, there comes a level of expected stupidity. Okay, but she went above and beyond in her first interaction with the press. I mean, forget some of the other stuff that she said yesterday and the exchanges where she clearly could not articulate which programs are being frozen and which are not, and then tried to blame the media for asking questions about which programs are being frozen. All forget that. The reason she makes right wing nut is in the course of this back and forth that she had with the media. She said I swear to God, this is true, that this White House does not believe that birthright citizenship is constitutional. In saying such, she essentially was saying, we don't think that the Constitution is constitutional.
All right. Poorly phrased. Poorly phrased. Yeah.
Or thought out, or
Yeah.
poorly positioned.
Yeah.
You know,
All of that.
I mean,
All
because
of
he's
that.
trying to end birthright citizenship, and he's trying to do it on the basis that it's not constitutional when it's in the
In the
Constitution.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, like you said, poorly thought out. Like I said,
and it's
poorly
one of the
phrased.
older ones.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it was a bizarre way to kind of make the argument.
Yeah. I mean, we had birthright citizenship before women got the right to vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
In there. It's 14. It's the 14th. So we had those first 10, and then the immediate Bill of Rights, on that. And then just 4 later was birthright citizenship. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're born in this country, you're a citizen. Yeah, it's that simple. And listen, they had these arguments, okay? All of the stupid shit that you're going to hear from the Trump administration about what's, whether or not we should have birthright citizenship, whether it's that, because you just come here and have a baby and it's a citizen. They had all these arguments, all of them. All of these arguments were had at the time this went in. And they said, yeah, we should. And it was ratified and added. And here we are.
Well, I'm curious to see how they're going to try, because obviously they're going to try to well, first of all, they've got to go through a constitutional process, even though it's been clearly established. Apparently, they have problems with things that are already in the Constitution. Okay, all right. But they're going to have to go through a constitutional process if they're going to try to undo that amendment. And good luck with that, because that's a long, process. And then in addition to that, I'm going to be curious to know how they are going to reconstruct things in such a way that and I'm just going to be blunt, that the people that they believe they want to have in America, that they want to be the predominant population in America, white people, how the white people that are born here are going to be citizens, but the people that they don't want to have here, how they're going to structure it so that they can somehow be eliminated while not affecting white people that are born here. That's what I'm going to be curious to see.
We came here the right way, David. We came here the right way and did things right.
So there's going to be some kind of lineage test? Is that what it's going to be?
Well, no. We're just if you're white, it's just assumed you came here the right way.
Well, okay, so we're going to just assume that white people are citizens and everybody else may not be. That's what we're going to start assuming.
Yeah, I mean, this was our country originally, so why shouldn't it?
Our
might be flaws in the argument,
Porch Creek friends would have a lot to say about that.
There might be flaws in the argument, but if you don't think about it, then you don't get to those flaws. It's ridiculous. And let me just also, because I know nobody knows anything anymore, I'll remind people that these same arguments were had about the Italians, about the Irish, about the Asians. We've had them all. This is nothing new. It's just your latest one. It's just the latest one. It's the latest fear mongering over the latest group of people that were a little bit different, who speak a different language, who do things a little bit different, who have different customs. And it's all the same arguments. It's the assimilation argument. It's the changing of the culture argument. It's all of these things. It is ridiculous. Okay. And the fact that you continue to allow yourself to be twisted up in knots over these same issues and these same threats and these same ominous, dire warnings about a changing country, and oh my God, what are we going to do? It is utterly ridiculous, and you sound ridiculous, and you look ridiculous, and I have a real problem taking you seriously. I just do, and because if you're that ignorant of the history of this country, and really you're that ignorant of your own history, your own personal history of how you got here and what happened in you getting here and how you became a citizen, and what this country was founded on and the principles in which it was founded on and the ideas in which we established birthright citizenship in the first place, which was because we wanted to have this country where everybody felt welcome, and we were going to be a melting pot for the world in this country, and we weren't going to be this society that pushed people away. That's the reason that we have the freedoms that we have, the freedoms of religion and the freedoms of speech and all of these things. That's the reason we've got it all. Okay, and it's the only thing that has kept us, except for that one time, from bombing the hell out of each other. And the only reason that we bombed the hell out of each other that time is because we took those freedoms away from a group of people, and everybody and a whole other group of people said, "No, the hell with that. We're not."
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and just to clarify just a little bit, the rights and freedoms that we had, this country was founded upon, really were created without black people in mind, without women in mind, without anybody in mind other than white men. But over time, eventually the fog began to lift and people began to see the light. The Civil War, like you said, was that one time where we did bomb and kill each other and hurt each other over this. And ideally, we don't want to see ever go back to that day and that time. We never want to see a recurrence of that. But the way that this current administration is moving, the way that they are doing things, they're dividing us in ways that are unprecedented. And, all we can do is just continue to speak up and push back and stand up, like you were talking about with you and I both were talking about with the AEA, with Anthony Daniels. We got to speak up, man. We got to stand up. We got to speak out. We cannot acquiesce to this evil that is trying to permeate our country.
100%. So,
and can I just say one thing?
Man, you say what you want to. It's your podcast.
$19,000 on a podium? Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
Yeah,
$19,000 on a podium?
Well, let's just say podium, because what they I don't know if you're reading. There's a gentleman there that's covered this better than anybody else, and I can't remember his name. But if you actually dig down into it, he has a pretty good theory on what this actually went to pay, and so. Yeah, you should just keep looking. Just keep looking. There. You'll see what the actual story is. So it's and for anybody, I recommend go out and find the Sarah Huckabee Sanders podium story.
Wow,
you will enjoy it immensely. All right, let's get ourselves out of here. Until next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.